Aloha and welcome to Java. Thank you kindly for joining me. As always, it's Thursday, May 23rd, 2024. We've got a lot to go over today, so I would like to get right into it. It's been some very interesting things happening. So, this morning, as we are starting off with our MMRI favorite risk indicator, has retraced slightly from yesterday. We're still in the grey territory, but that has also retraced. We'll talk about why in just a moment. We've got our 10-year yield as well as the relative strength of the dollar relatively flat at the moment. We've got cryptocurrencies are making moves. Ethereum overtaking Bitcoin on the spot ETF coming out for Ethereum and some other moves in the crypto space we'll talk about in a minute as well. So what happened yesterday? We had a weak market closing basically on the back of some reports and the Fed speaking, basically crushing hopes of a rate cut anytime soon. But then after market, we had the earnings from Nvidia report. And in case you live under a rock or didn't hear, they had great earnings. They raised their dividend and they're also talking about a stock split. So that sent it shooting above the $1,000 per share mark. So with this, we've got an interesting, in the sentiment, a reverse dynamic on open going on. And this is mostly because of Nvidia. So we've got one company swinging things back the other way. We'll be watching today. We've got job numbers, PMI, and also new homes reporting. I will go over that in a minute. But as it sits right now, we've got stocks. We're still in the red on the close, but the futures are in the green because of Nvidia basically floating that tech sector. But will it last? It's basically you're looking at one rider giving that the boost. So going into the calendar and earnings, as I said today, we've got initial jobless claims. Jobless numbers now going to be a key metric for the Federal Reserve because basically job losses are mounting. So we've got PMI, another measure of inflation, new home sales, talk a little bit more about that as well. And then Fed President speaking before open tomorrow, we've got durable goods orders, which I don't expect to be a big mover. So with our earnings today, as well as prior to market open tomorrow, we've got Intuit. That should be a big one. We've got Medtronic and a couple of others. We've got TD Bank, should be positive in the news. They've been basically consolidating with a couple of other banks. So let's go into our stories. We've got a few things that are guiding all of this with the inflation continuing to run in the background. So what happened yesterday? The Fed came out saying recent inflation data has not increased their confidence about the rate cuts. We also heard from Loretta Mester, and she is kind of outgoing. She's got one more voting session in, and then she will be stepping down in June. So she kind of came out and told the truth about saying that the inflation is still basically running much too high for them to consider the rate cuts. So along with that, we also had the existing home sales numbers falling unexpectedly. I'm not sure unexpectedly to who, because it's been a weak market lately, but for April. And I expect that to continue, not just April, but next month's numbers as well, the way that mortgage rates and finances are going. So with this, we've got a couple of stories. One came out directly from the Federal Reserve saying that most Americans are reporting worsening finances. So 1 in 6 households could not pay their monthly bills in 2023. They are relying on credit cards, buy now, pay later companies, which we're also going to talk about more in a minute. And it's just showing the credit crush. They're running out of reserves. Savings are depleted. So with this, inflation will continue. We've got the lower income Americans, as we were speaking about, already in recession. And what we're watching is really this separation of a two-tier society. If you're not moving up, then you're definitely moving down. With this, we've got a couple of other stories. Many U.S. dairy workers yet to get protective gear against what they're saying about the bird flu coming out. They're really pushing this. It's more of a control on the food supply and also kind of a fear builder. But what's going on with that is it is inflationary, but not just your dairy, but also will go against your beef. So, and I'm kind of glossing over these, but there's a lot to cover. If you're planning on traveling Memorial Day weekend, try to avoid JFK because they're planning a strike on that weekend for a showdown. So if you can avoid that or rebook your travel now, I suggest looking at that. So we've got Yellen calling on a united front on Chinese industrial overcapacities. She's saying, calling foul on the Chinese because basically they're actually producing and their prices are less expensive than American prices. So the US in turn will try to put more taxes on them to make their goods more expensive so that you'll be forced to pay higher prices for local. Now, I support buying local, however, inflationary, definitely inflationary. So we're also getting more news about the choke points in global shipping, always watching global shipping as a true indicator of the real economy, the real global economy. And we've got problems in two major areas, of course, because the Middle East, that route has been shut down. Basically, you have to travel all the way around. And then we've still got issues with Panama Canal, not allowing traffic through there. So moving forward, we've got Google is looking at acquiring HubSpot. They're trying to bolster a bit to challenge Microsoft, and they're all now basically competing to own news outlets. So the Financial Times just got sold out, and now they have become basically, as I put out on X this morning, they are paid for woke trash now. So we've got Nvidia shares jumping past $1,000 after the AI chip maker showed they are putting out a stock split. And I believe that will happen later this year. And then they also had an upbeat sales forecast. So that made everything boom. We're going to see that on open in the markets. However, if it continues throughout the day, I would be surprised. So we've got a couple of things. Let's talk about the cryptocurrency market at the moment. So this story coming out about Godzilla versus Kong. So Hong Kong, the SEC facing a fierce battle against crypto's legal firepower. Basically, the House passed a crypto bill. And it's saying despite warnings from the SEC, so SEC is worried that they won't get to regulate it enough. And with regulation comes many things. However, an interesting note on this is that Nancy Pelosi is backing this bill. So she must have bought cryptocurrency. I almost guarantee it. So we've got, on the back of this, we are talking about consumers being so strapped for cash, they pushed their credit cards to the limit. And then they went into buy now, pay later loans, or BNPL. So we've got the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, to classify these as credit cards under consumer laws. So what is this doing? It's basically choking them out, require them to do a lot more things under this regulation. I wouldn't say it's necessarily bad. However, it is crushing out one more venue, basically, that consumers have had to kind of float their situation that they are basically not in good financial condition. By the way, the CFPB is possibly the most powerful, quiet government regulatory agency that no one is watching, and they're overfinanced. And so I'll probably bring them up more a little bit later when there's a little more time. So I want to get to a few other things. We've got big banks are now facing intensifying political pressure over Zelle fraud. So again, Zelle is kind of a direct payment that was put in place, but they're saying that there were some scams that had happened. So now they want to shut this down. But basically, it was an alternate payment method that people could use peer to peer. And so now that is getting cut out as a method. They are slowly closing the gaps and very quietly in the background. So with this, I would like to go to the next story. It's actually two. Santander expands instant payments. So this is the bank in Spain. They call it Iberpay. They're the first supporters of the European Payment Council's instant account-to-account network. So very similar. And what this is doing is basically they're expanding this to 36 nations in the European Union. And this is the equivalency of the Fed now. It's the rails for the CBDC to come out. So keep an eye on this and see what's going on with that. The next one is the Australia advancing their digital ID. So Australian lawmakers approved bills that would create federal digital identity system. Now, this is important to note that during C-19 and all of the lockdowns, a couple of things happened. Australia is a huge place, which is why I generally don't cover it. But there is a major divide, just as there was in the US, between cities and rural. And in the city, highly populated areas, they were very restrictive. And it also kind of went to a police state, as well as were the first ones to call in NATO troops to crack down on individuals. So losing rights, putting in digital ID, I think it's very bad news in the whole run. But let's move on. We've got Groenberg. If you didn't hear, he's FDIC. So he's leaving the FDIC, and they're talking about what this could mean as far as implications for the White House and the Senate, even though they're supposed to be basically a little more non-political. But this move could basically weaken the Basel rule for banks and also create more strength for the Federal Reserve. They're supposed to have joint rulemaking, but with him leaving, now basically it's empowering Fed. So we've got, more importantly, why we need these. Ex-Citi banker saying she was fired now for refusing to give false data to these regulators. So Citibank been in the news a lot lately, not very good, but they just showing they're covering up the truth. Okay, a few more things to go through. We've got tensions rising as Russia is redrawing their maritime borders in the Baltic. So we've got the Baltic states now in an uprise, tensions increasing, they're talking nuclear and getting all of this, kerfuffle. So we've got, along with this, we've got Taiwan scrambling jets, putting up missiles, Navy land alerts because of China kind of stirring things up on that side. I got this direct from US Cent Command. These are photos of another weapon. It's against drones. We were talking about this yesterday, the wave firing machine that they've come out with now. And this one is aimed at kind of disrupting the control frequency for drones. So we're training foreign troops, Jordanians. And then quietly in the background, we've got lawmakers moving to automate selective service registration for all men. Now, if you are younger than a certain age, this is the draft. So all men ages 18 to 26 automatically enrolled in selective service system under this plan that was approved Wednesday night. So we're going to war. And I spoke about this before. I've been kind of quiet about it, but prepare. With this, I wish you all a great day. I know this went on a little bit, but I had a lot to cover with you. I hope you have a wonderful day. And until I see you again, my friends, stay free.